Hey guys, welcome back to Alex's Reef. So here's going to be a little bit of a long update to kind of explain what all had happened to the reef tank. So as you can see, there's hair algae kind of everywhere, and some stuff has been moved around. So originally, there was some kind of swing that had happened, and the swing resulted in some of my corals closing up, but then they started to come back. During that swing, though, the sand-sifting starfish had pretty much eaten all of the bacteria in the sand bed, and it started to waste away, which started the growth of the hair algae at a very quick pace. So to combat that, of course, the sand-sifting starfish was removed, and I was already going to order in to try out some fluconazole from Reef HD, which you can see here, and I tried it, and it was a little bit successful. The first time that I applied it, you definitely saw most of the hair algae disappear within 2 weeks, and it was nice. And here's a little bit of shots of some of the hair algae left after another treatment of it. So as soon as that first treatment started to end, everything started to come back. But then overnight, when most of the hair algae was gone, most of the corals were starting to make a comeback, I woke up the next morning and I found that most of my corals, like the Lobothelia, my frog spawn, all turned to brown jelly, as well as the Galaxia was peeling away. The leather was closed up, all my zoas closed up, my acan that was recovering was even closed up, and the new blastos that I bought were closed up, and the newer anemone, bubble tip anemone, it basically wasted away all in that one night. So I was kind of disappointed. Even my mushrooms closed up, and I was kind of disappointed though, trying to figure out what had happened as I was going through and removing the dead parts or the brown jelly parts. And what I'd happened to find out floating through the tank as I was removing some of these dead skeleton corals, and the brown jelly ones, is, like I said, as I was moving them out, a black beetle come floating out from between the rocks. I don't know how he got into the reef tank. He must have just, been flying and fell down into the tank. But whatever it was, when he landed into my tank, he basically, whatever chemicals he may have had on him, exposed into the reef tank and pretty much killed all my corals. Not only did he kill the corals, but any snails that were not in the sand bed or not above the water line were all dead that night too. The next morning they were all dead. The hermit crabs were trying to eat them. The only thing not affected were the fish and the hermit crabs, and my shrimp. So yeah, all my Astrea snails, they all were dead. The Nerite snail, one of the two of them lived. One of them happened to be above the water line. The other one was in the water. All my Sarah snails were in the sand bed. They seemed to not be affected. Only the couple of my dwarf Sarah snails that were actually not in the sand bed but up on the rocks at the time, and as well as the conch that was in the sand. So to help treat the hair algae, I did another treatment of the fluconazole, and as you can see, there's some spots of cyanobacteria throughout the entire fish tank. To help treat that as well, as you can see, I did the Chemi Clean, and the results of it will be pretty impressive. I'll go ahead and post a video here starting in the next month for the next Rico tank challenge so that everybody can see. I also went through and was cleaning out my skimmer, and somebody had asked me that if you clean your skimmer, does it not harm the effectiveness of it? And the problem is that if you don't clean your skimmer, you're not going to get the skimmate that you want. So here's what my skimmer was running, and I'm gonna show you the effects of what happens when your skimmer is running and you haven't cleaned it. It's been about 3.5 months, so it was time to clean it, and to my discovery, here it was. There's no air getting through because it's not being cleaned, so the airline tubing builds up calcium at the bottom of it, at the where the pump is, and it calcifies and seals up the hole. So if you don't clean your skimmer every so often, things like that happen. This is also what I was pulling out of the tank when I was using the fluconazole. I was running filter floss to catch any of the hair algae, and what you saw of the hair algae that was there, this was part of the hair algae that was coming out and just hitting into the filter floss. So it's pretty gross from what you're seeing. And yeah. So looking through the tank again, I also got a replacement pump from Current Marine. I have one of their loop pumps in there, the 660. Sent out a message to them. I said, hey, this thing just does not pump water like it should. And so I got another one from them. And what I'm realizing getting them is that it's rated at 660 gallons. Both of them seem to act about the same. It says it's rated at 660 gallons, but that pump is not pushing out 660 gallons. My Tunzi pump that I have, that I took out for these, that does push 660, it by itself can push more water than the two of these pumps together. So am I impressed with them? Not really, not at all. But you know, the fish are alive. Most of my inverts are alive, and I'm getting them replaced. A lot of the corals are gone, and I've basically got to start over from ground zero, and that's what we're working on. But you know, treating the tank, getting it cleaned up, getting the hair algae gone, getting the cyanobacteria mostly out of it, that's the goal, to get the tank back into a good pristine order. Most of the time reefers quit at this time. You got to put your head down to the game, figure out what the problem was. I mean, whatever that beetle brought into my tank after I originally treated it and tried to clean it up and was getting it there, and then that beetle hit in, I mean, it almost killed GSP and almost killed Exenia, and those two are almost bulletproof. And so to almost kill GSP or Exenia, like I said, whatever it brought into the tank, I'm pretty surprised that any of the corals that I had that lived still lived. My big feather duster, that's kind of right there in that corner, it even shed its entire crown and retreated, and I thought it had died and that it wasn't going to come back. And I happened to find it hidden in the sand bed, no longer in the spot to where it originally was, where it was attached to the rock that it came in on. So I brought him back up to the surface, and then he started to come back out as well. So not everything was lost. If it went under the sand bed, stayed in the sand bed, or above the water, there was no problems whatsoever. So moving on, just kind of show me cleaning up my protein skimmer to kind of show where the problem was. And if you look at it, I mean, this protein skimmer is completely gross. It's been in there 3.5 months, and you can see the slime and the bacteria and all the detritus and gunk that the protein skimmer would normally pull out is just sitting in that body. It's just completely gross. So looking at the end of that tube, like I said, if you don't do maintenance on your tube, you get a little hard plastic piece of calcium in there, and you can do what I did, where I just kind of broke it up and just slowly whittled it out of there until it just kind of crumbled and came out. You could always dip it in vinegar, leave it overnight if you need to, and that would be best recommended to help kind of loosen it all up and break it down. But honestly, if you're gonna just need to do a quick fix, this is something that for some nano skimmers you're just gonna have to honestly do. Get in there, get your hands dirty, and get it going so that it gets cleaned, and so it starts filtering and skimming back to a better efficiency. Another thing is that cleaning your skimmer out, always make sure you check your pumps as well, because as you can see, this thing is just absolutely filthy. The intake is clogged. Where it would extake, the bubbles into the main chamber was all covered up, and that little hole in the middle of what I'm wiping off there, that's where it's calcifying and not letting the airline tube take anything in on it. So you got to make sure you kind of clean it up. Again, like I said, soaking this overnight in like a vinegar or something like that is best. But yeah, so as you can tell, the the motor on this here, the propeller for this pump on 2NZ, the magnet in it to keep this thing spinning is so darn strong. Like, I could not pull this out with tongs. I couldn't get a pin under it because it's just so close to the body. I had to use that little spoon to just kind of pry it up enough that I could actually get my fingers under it so that I could actually lift it out. And it's a fight to get that thing out. So make sure you're cleaning that. Alright, man, so as you can tell, I kicked up some dirt in the tank, and there is the skimmer back in working order. Alright, guys, it's Alex with Alex's Reef. Thank you for coming by. If you watched it this whole way, thank you very much. I hope you guys come back again. Thank you for your